Good to go? All right, so welcome back to Ethereum Bangkok, and we're going to talk about Ethereum V2. I wonder if there is anyone in the chat that's here since the morning. If so, please raise your hand, and very happy to have had all those great talks and panel. So we're going to have we're going to be joined by two people. So there's going to be Emily Guidry from the Ethereum Foundation, who will be joining us via a recording, presenting the activities that the Ethereum Foundation is involved in. And we have with us also Diederik Proto, who joins us on the call live. Hi, Diederik. Hi, Proto. Should I call you Proto, right?
Yeah, you can copy Proto.
All right, cool. And so, yeah, I'm Guillaume at Tatato. I'm just going to stop the presentation that Emily has shared with us. And just give me 1 second to put it on the screen. All right, so you guys should see a presentation video coming up. Yep, I can see it here.
Hello, my name is Emily Guidry, and I'm here to talk about the Ethereum Foundation's Ecosystem Support Program. So for starters, I just want to say thank you to the organizers of ETH Bangkok for allowing me to attend via video. And I know I miss meeting with members of the crypto community, and virtual events like these have just been really important during COVID and just during this whole year. So really thank you for putting on this event. All right, let's get into it. So ESP is what we like to call ourselves, the Ecosystem Support Program. We love acronyms. In this talk, I'll be running through who we are, what we do, why we do it, and how we do it. But before I speak about ESP, first I want to really zoom out and talk about the Ethereum Foundation itself. So the Ethereum Foundation's mission is do what's best for Ethereum's long-term success. And to fulfill that mission, the Ethereum Foundation takes on three main roles. The first role is to allocate. They allocate resources to critical projects. The second one is to be a valued voice within the Ethereum ecosystem. And the last, a little bit cut off by my video, but it says to advocate for Ethereum to the outside world. So the Ecosystem Support Program is just one of the ways that the Ethereum Foundation pursues that first goal of allocating resources to critical projects. So to be more specific, we connect individuals and teams at any stage of development with a broad range of support. And that can mean grants, technical feedback, introductions, free access to tools and platforms, or even just a friendly conversation or a nudge in the right direction. As you can tell, we really do take support to mean many different things. Our program used to be called the Ethereum Foundation Grants Program, and we changed our name to illustrate this expanded definition to include other alternative forms of support. So again, when we say support, we could mean all of these different things. This is not an exhaustive list, but it just kind of gives you an idea of the flavor of like what we can provide. So again, traditional financial grants, we definitely still give out money. We definitely still do that, but we also can help you with project and idea validation, product feedback, community feedback, project coordination. We can introduce you to many of the people that we know in our network. We can give you applicable credits like AWS credits or credits to different software. And then we can also point you to some alternative funding sources. So who is eligible for support? Anyone involved with Ethereum is eligible for a grant or alternative form of support, but we do have minimum requirements for projects that receive traditional monetary grants and the more involved forms of alternative support. So the minimum requirements for a traditional monetary grant, your project must be open source. It must benefit Ethereum, and it must focus on universal tools or infrastructure or research or just common resources. So we do have some definite no's. Just to get this out the way, we will not pump or help sell your token. We will not invest in your new quant fund, and we will not fund your totally unrelated to Ethereum business. So I think you really get the picture. I do want to point out the nuance here. Like, no, we won't likely fund your dApp, but if in the process of making your dApp, you create a free and open source dev tool that will really be a boon to the ecosystem, then we'd be very interested in hearing about that. So in this portion of the talk, I'm going to run down a couple examples of past support, just of the many grantees and receivers of support that we've had in the past. I picked out 3 that I thought were exemplary. The first I want to talk about today is Alice. So Alice is a decentralized platform for the social finance sector. They help impact investors and governments and nonprofits reduce transaction costs and allow them to share verified impact data. So why did we want to support them? Well, they're a veteran team in the space. We found them to be very values aligned. And normally this team wouldn't necessarily qualify for a traditional grant, but they are valued members of the Ethereum community. And we just wanted to acknowledge that, we wanted to find a way to help them. So we got the Alice CEO on a call with Alex Vandesan, who provided really good UX and UI feedback for the Alice staff. And the Alice team gave us a shout out. They said thank you. They apparently really appreciated the support. They found it very helpful, and those are the types of things we really like to see. The next team I want to talk about is our project really is Concio. So they are a GoFundMe style marketplace for social good missions on Ethereum, and we want to support them because really in our former grants program that only focused on traditional grants, again, this type of application really would have been rejected. It wasn't protocol layer or infrastructure or research. It was just really a good example of something great that can be built on Ethereum. But what interested us is the fact that this team was, again, very values aligned, and it was Web 2 devs that wanted to build on Ethereum. So if you think back to the list of the 3 goals of the Ethereum Foundation, or the 3 roles, advocating, this is how we could advocate to get Web 2 devs to convert to Web 3 devs. So we saw this project was similar to the Alice project. So we connected them with the Alice CEO, who provided a lot of tips and guidance, and it was really valuable, like, for the Concio teams as entrepreneurs. It's just like not something you can find on Twitter, on Reddit, that type of advice. So we also pointed him towards useful tutorials and dev resources to really help this team get started on Ethereum and learn best practices. And since we wouldn't necessarily fund this when fully built out, we also pointed the Concio team towards various incubators and like startup funding resources. And lastly, I want to discuss ClearFund. So ClearFund is a community effort geared towards building an open and less trustful quadratic funding protocol for the Ethereum ecosystem. They use Macy. Why do we want to support them? Funding public goods is a huge endeavor. I wish I could just say that in all caps. Funding public goods is a huge endeavor, and it just shouldn't be under the purview of the Ethereum Foundation. Like, everyone should be taking part in this. It definitely takes a village to like build the village, right? So we granted the ClearFund team $21K in matching funds to go towards the first 2 actual production rounds of CLR. And I'm happy to say that ClearFund's first real money matching round kicked off earlier this week. So go check that out if you're interested in contributing. So in this portion, I'm going to give you guys a little rundown on the numbers, some of the stats for ESP. So this is a chart that I drew up. It shows a % breakdown of instances of support provided by ESP sorted by category. And I want to be clear that first, this doesn't include support provided by other arms of the EF, just ESP. And also I broke it down by instances of support. So that's not like 32% of community education. It's not 32% of all the funds we spent. It's 32% of anything that we funded, like that piece of the pie. Those are projects focused on community and education. I broke it down like this because I don't necessarily think it's fair to rank the importance of teams necessarily by how much funding they get. That's just how I feel. I don't think it's necessarily fair to break it down that way. So yeah, if you look, community education does take the majority of the types of things that we support. Next is developer experience and tooling with 23.8%. Next, we have user experience projects. Those take about 13%. Miscellaneous projects that don't really fit into these nice baskets, that's about another 11%. And then we've got layer 1 at almost 8%, layer 2 at almost 5%, and indirect funding, which is things like ClearFund or Moloch DAO or just any other DAOs, CLRs, things like that. We contributed our 5.8 of our applicants or people that we end up supporting fall into that category. All right, next we have a couple more statistics. So of all of the forms of support that we gave, about half of them were traditional monetary grants. A little over half were traditional monetary grants. A little under half were those alternative forms of support, meaning like I listed before, it could be like AWS credits, giving people intros, things like that. All in all, we've supported 123 different projects in Ethereum this year. So I want to say a little round of applause. That means a lot of people are out there building, and that's what we like to see. So you might be asking yourself, how can you apply? I'm going to show you. So if you go to our website, esp.ethereum.foundation, you can also go to ecosystem.support, but I recommend esp.ethereum.foundation. You can go click contact us, like scroll down on our main page. You'll see this button right here. It says submit an inquiry. When you select submit an inquiry, you're going to be asked your first question. Sorry, my video is covering this up a little bit, but you're either going to select that you're applying on behalf of a specific project or exploring possibilities. Specific project, this means like you know what you're doing, you know what you're building, and you just need help moving it forward. Exploring possibilities is a little more open-ended. Maybe you want to contribute to Ethereum, or you like have a skill that you think could be useful, but you just aren't sure where to start, where to go, who to talk to. You would click exploring possibilities. And again, this isn't an application. This is really just an inquiry, like kicking off the conversation between you guys and us, the Ethereum Ecosystem Support Program. So what's it look like once you click submit an inquiry? So this is where the journey begins. You have submitted an inquiry form, you've been to our website, done the whole deal that I just showed you, and then the next step is intake and initial review. So at this point, we're going to be asking you, like, what does success look like for your project? What are your goals? What are your desired outcomes? What's your intended impact? We get in touch with you and we would just really try to hash this all out. And from there, we move on to identifying support opportunities. We identify those support opportunities that we can provide to you to help you get to where you need to be. And this almost always includes like a call with a member of the ESP team, if not, just email correspondence, things like that. So if you're still kicking around ideas or you need some inspiration, so go to our website. Again, that's esp.ethereum.foundation. And we have a little page called our wish list. And this is a non-exhaustive list. Again, the wish list is just like some of the areas where we're actively seeking applications. You can also check out our pin board. This was created in collaboration with the ETH2 research team, and these are just interesting problems for you to tackle. We've posted a bunch of those there, so please go check them out. And lastly, just tell me what you're working on. Again, go to our website. You can email us, esp@ethereum.org. You can tweet at us, get our attention, EF_ESP. If you go to our website, please check out our blog for more updates from our team and just info on the various teams we've been able to support. You can also sign up for our newsletter there so you never miss an update. I'm not doing this live, so I don't have time, obviously, or the ability to do a Q&A. But if you are watching this, how about you send us a tweet with any of your questions, and I'd be more than happy to respond. Again, thank you for the ETH Bangkok team for allowing me to have this time to speak to all of you. I've really enjoyed it. I hope you have a good rest of your conference. And thank you very much. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Great presentation from Emily. Yeah, Emily, if you're watching us from the future in our YouTube recording, thank you very much for participating. And anyone who wants to get in touch with the Ethereum Foundation, check out esp.ethereum.foundation, tweet at ETHESP, and hashtag ETHBangkok. I'm sure Emily will be looking for your tweets. Why did we want to bring in the Ethereum Foundation? First, Ethereum Foundation is one of the sponsors of this event, so thank you very much. That's a practical example of the those grants that Emily was talking about. And as she mentioned, 123 projects supported year to date on the Ethereum Foundation. So really amazing effort from all the team and great outputs with this incredible growth that we've been seeing this year. So the foundation is really important in steering the community in some ways and supporting certain initiatives. And with us today, we have Proto, who's going to share with us a bit more about how he's involved with the Ethereum Foundation and the type of work he's working on. So maybe Proto, if you could introduce yourself to the community.
Yes, thank you, Emily, for the presentation about the grants. I'll share my screen with the presentation.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about Ethereum 2, right, Proto?
Yes. Okay.
All right, we can see the presentation. Great.
Great. Yeah, you can see this? All right.
Oh, good.
Okay, so about Ethereum 2. So Emily already kind of mentioned that we're looking for people to look at Ethereum 2 not just as this distant project, but as something you can work on or you can be involved with. So I'll try and introduce you how Ethereum 2 is more or less works. I'm not going to be too technical here. If you are a developer, if you have technical questions, at the end we have a Q&A. So I'm happy to answer any more technical details at the end. And then just try and have you learn a little bit about the different processes of running testnets, how Ethereum 2, how we are progressing towards mainnet launch. This whole planning thing is a really complicated thing with the Ethereum 2 project. We have not made it easy for ourselves, but it's exciting, and I kind of want to share what's happening. So who am I? I'm a researcher at Ethereum Foundation. I work on all sorts of different things. I work a little bit on the specification, on dev tooling for implementer teams, some testing, infrastructure, all kinds of different sort of things. You can find me on GitHub or open an issue in any of the repositories. I'll be happy to help you get started with anything. Let's think about Ethereum 2. There's a lot to it. I know this is very overwhelming. There's like these different phases, all these questions, a new network stack, all these user questions, different kind of pieces of software you need to run for Ethereum 2. And then there's all these things around Ethereum 2, like the data challenge, testnets, bug bounties. And I'll try and kind of like explain this. Like this is a lot.
And
don't go too fast.
Proto, just sorry to interrupt. If you can maybe speak up a bit, because some people in the audience report some difficulty to hear.
Okay. Are my audio settings okay?
It sounds better now. Thank you.
All right. So what I'm trying to say, we're not going too fast. I'll slow down. I'll go through this. So all I'm going to talk about is I'm going to explain Ethereum 2. Then we have some progress to go and see where are we now, what is happening in Ethereum 2. The attack nets and bounties, these are these programs around Ethereum 2 to help you get involved and help us learn and improve. And then we have the Medasha data challenge. We collected a lot of testnet data that's really useful to us to improve the protocol, and useful to you to see how these testnets are doing, how the network performs, and see how you can, as a staker, benefit from like tweaking your setup to get more out of the end result. And then near the end, we'll have time for a Q&A. So what is Ethereum 2, right? So for the new people among us, if you're not familiar with Ethereum 2, that's okay. So Ethereum 2 is split into phases. You can think of these as layers. Layers is a really better way to think about that than like this change, because we have the beacon chain launching first. It will be the standalone thing. Then we have shards layered on top, and then we have some kind of execution context where we're previously planning for like this wider execution context. Right now it's looking more like we'll have Ethereum 1 sooner rather than later, and prioritize Ethereum 1 as this execution context, and only then focus on wider execution. So I'll also talk a little bit about phase 1.5 is what we call this. And so the differences here is that the phase 0 is beacon chain, is where all the staking happens. This is the system chain where all the validators register themselves, where balances are being held, and kind of like just the go-to layer for administering the other parts of the system. Then phase 1, shards, is where you keep track of all the data. At first, it will just be plain data. There's a lot of exciting things going on still, because there's a huge increase in throughput with data availability. So for all these second layer solutions, think of rollups, you have a lot more to play with, a lot more room space, hopefully also enabling lower fees. And then after that, we'll get to a point where we can merge Ethereum 1. And then we are starting to talk about roadmap and these more complicated things. So a few months ago, Diederik shared the huge diagram on Twitter, like all these interdependencies between the Ethereum roadmap blocks. So like earlier this year, we were at this preparation point where we were polishing clients and just working through various bugs and testnet improvements. Right now, today, we're in the center of this graph of the phase 0 part. We're zooming in here on just the Ethereum 2 part. There's a lot more to it. We are kind of waiting for the deposit contract to be deployed for a few final thumbs up from client teams. They are ready. And then we can launch phase 0. And then after phase 0 launch, we'll have some of the implementers and the research team continue with phase 1 progress. And this development kind of includes the introduction of Ethereum 2 client functionality that supports shards. So manage data, think about quickly seeing and confirming the data is available. Data availability sampling is what we're currently working on. And there's a lot more to it. There's more peer-to-peer networking to design. There are more audits, more testing, new implementations. And then we have in parallel the ETH1X effort, which at that point should have progressed to a point where we can think about the merge, plan out how we transition the state into Ethereum 2 and fully transition to proof of stake. So about this planning, we went through a lot of different things. And the main theme here for Ethereum 2 this past year is that we went through a lot of testnets. And then for every testnet, we would have one of these calls where you'd have all the developers working towards this testnet on the call and answer questions and help explain how this testnet changes from, like, how it's different from the previous one, and kind of what's happening to these participants in the network. I really recommend before mainnet launch, you just try out one of the existing testnets and become familiar with the software and report any bugs, any kind of things that we could improve on before launch. That is always great. And so this is the Zinken testnet. We have a long history of testnets so far. And this is just this year. Like the last year, there were some more experimental things as well. So on the bottom, you find the early Prism testnets, the early multi-client testnets, and then on top, you find the latest ones. Zinken is the one that helps us prepare for the genesis of mainnet. And then phase 0 itself, it's just a staking chain, just a beacon chain. So it's not the full system yet. It tried to make incremental steps. And then the further we go, like at some point early next year, we hope to launch testnets with phase 1 functionality. So that's where all the next work is going. There are a few special ones between these as well. There's like Fafafa, it's maybe new to some of you. There are these attack nets. So most of these testnets, they're public. They're meant for developers to help collect user feedback and have like a very wide, broad user base. And then some others are like just focused at, can we bring the testnet down? Can we attack it in some way? Or just for debugging network level kind of things. And then, well, so through all this progress, it's really difficult sometimes. There are many design iterations. Justin Drake tweeted this thing that really took off, where he tried to kind of explain why is it taking so long, what's changing. Because a lot of these things are on the protocol level. They're not immediately apparent on a user experience level. I think like with phase 0, with the launch of phase 0, Ethereum 1 right now is not going to change in any way. It's just phase 0 is going to be this additional thing for a while. But there is a lot of improvement in there still, and it prepares us for phase 1. And so these things that change is the network layer, libp2p, and proof of stake. And then we have 5, that's a lot, 5 new different clients following this protocol, allowing users to participate. It's a lot of new software, a lot of developers which have to coordinate on how this protocol works. And I think this definitely has been like a challenge in how to organize this. We could have, like looking back, we could have like started with one client and then tried and copy with other clients. But from the get-go, we started with a lot of clients. We even had this story or like how Teku previously was, there were 2 different clients that merged. And I think like it was not easy, but we definitely had a lot more feedback, a lot of different takes on like what's the best way to do this kind of thing. And we kind of like have a better protocol as a result of this. So there's 5 clients, 3 of these which I really recommend for mainnet. That's Lighthouse, Prism, Teku. Nimbus is getting ready. They're getting closer to being mainnet ready every day. And then Lodestar is this thing that we mostly encourage because of its tooling, the libraries that it provides. It's this JavaScript client, which is really special. So when we get to a point where we have this live network, from the get-go, we have libraries available for like people with a development background to interact with the protocol level details in JavaScript or TypeScript, and to provide this kind of useful tooling between these clients and the user. So what's new? Like this network layer, it's libp2p, which is this protocol used in various other blockchains as well. It's this new, like it's, I think Filecoin is the primary example. It's developed by Protocol Labs and offers a lot of new features on the network layer, improvements, and kind of this full library that we support, client support, and that enable other developers to easily hook into the network and basically avoid having a lot of duplicate or specialized code, but instead have this thing that we can all share as these projects and improve our that, which really improves security and stability. And then we have this new fork choice, which is based on, it's to execute proof of stake on such a huge scale, we need to aggregate signatures of all the participants. And this is an immense task of aggregating hundreds of thousands validator signatures every 6 minutes. And so every slot, every 12 seconds, there are a few committees, which later will be functioning to, they will be basically provide the backbone to run these shards. This sharding of consensus is effectively already there. It's just the data layer that we introduced in phase 1. This is like these kind of things, these changes are so immense. They're really just like what Ethereum 2 is about. It's not about breaking Ethereum 1 in any kind of way. Now we're updating the consensus layer, and then we hope to embed Ethereum 1 in Ethereum 2. So throughout this year, we had a whole lot of different kind of spec updates. And then we're now at this point, we're at 0.12, which is really stable, but just not it yet. And we have the release candidate for mainnet, which is what we'll be using for the real thing. There's just a few configuration changes, a few tweaks, no big changes otherwise. And I think this last update is what clients are currently adopting. And then while the deposit contract is going live, we'll have clients running the release candidate, doing Genesis tests, and then we'll be ready for the launch. So a little bit more about testnets. So there's this one special type of testnet that we call the attack net, which just served us really well in the past. So to be mainnet ready, we need to like secure the network, right? We need every client to be to not fall over on a simple attack, to harden itself against this kind of DOS factors. Denial of service is really risky because we need nodes to be online to participate, to be able to publish their thoughts and keep the network healthy. Of course, we can have some offline nodes, that's no problem, but when like a third of the network goes down because of some bug in a client, then we have a real problem. So we try to, we bounty these kind of bugs. We invited people to attack this kind of network. We paid out like several bug bounties for these different clients and for things related to the spec to improve here. And this testnet has been running as long as Medasha, as long as the public testnet, we just focused on this kind of security thing. And then, so what's next? So we are retiring the old attack net. We'll be possibly launching a new one soon on the release candidate version, on the thing that's as close as possible to mainnet. And we'll be, we are managing a new bounty program where you can participate and get paid for kind of things you can find in clients. So some of these clients, they went through audits. Audits are not perfect either. Like, it is valuable, any kind of feedback is valuable to a client team to improve before mainnet, secure the client. So you can think of denial of service attacks, ways you can stall a client, or kind of improvements where you think a client has some interoperability issue with another client that may or may not be exploited in another way. These kind of things, we welcome these in the bounty program, and there's this site you can go to get started. And then final part is Medasha Data Challenge. So we run this program where we invited the community to go through the clients, through all this testnet data of the Medasha, of the public testnet. And so this thing ran for 1.5 months, just finished last week. So you have this new pretty post popping up about how Medasha was functioning, about validator performance, analysis, and how clients compare and how they differ. And there are a few interesting things to talk about here. And I invite you to read through all the posts. We'll be posting a summary of all this data as well with the results soon. We're still in the judging phase where we try and compare all the different submissions. I think we have over 20 submissions. It's really special to have this kind of challenge where you can get so deep into the protocol, but then as a non-protocol developer, it's really just a data challenge. And it helps find us analyze these kind of bugs and these kind of things where we can improve the protocol. So this is like, I think Splunk is specialized in visualizing data and aggregating it all. They made this really like extensive summary or like lots of tiny pieces of data. They have more like things that are less overwhelming as well, but it shows that there's a lot to learn and a lot to understand in a testnet. I think you can, like, if you go through the different posts about the Medasha Data Challenge, you can really learn a lot. And then there's this one. So throughout Medasha, we had like near the start, we had this incident where present nodes would have this problem where they have a different time, different system time than other nodes, and which would throw them off the network because they can't agree on what should be happening, what should be signed. And so this spike down in like shortly down to 0, where there's this very strange disagreement, which in hindsight was the best thing that could have happened to the testnet. Like clients from there on after improved really a lot to deal with this kind of situations where there was disagreement or there was huge load spikes. And then from there, after that, network was kind of healthy. Of course, you have people that they participate in the testnet for a week or for less than a week, and then they turn off their validator skills. So slowly you start seeing validators that are being abandoned. And kind of this increases the likelihood of not finalizing anymore, right? So the less participants you have, that are actively doing their duties, the closer you get to this 2/3. Right now, Medasha is at the point where more than 1/3 of the network is not properly signing their attestations. There's a little bit of chaos. But I think, like just before mainnet launch, this kind of thing where we stress test the remaining validators, those that are currently on the network, is still helpful. I think like after this, clients will only be just much stronger for a situation where there's chaos, there are incentive problems, any kind of things like that. Because right now, Medasha, it doesn't have any incentives. It's just free for all. get some free testnet ETH, stake it, run a node or two. And it's kind of a weird situation with proof of stake, whereas with a mainnet, you have real incentives to keep your node online. And being penalized for going offline is a more serious thing. So that's the view of Medasha right now. And I'm happy to answer more questions there. If you want to learn more, we have this community of developers, we have a community of stakers, and then we have the Launchpad. The Launchpad is focused on like enabling you to participate in a testnet, trying things out, seeing how like a deposit works. Like a testnet is really the best opportunity to try Ethereum 2 for yourself and get involved. The ETH Staker Reddit is this community. They have a YouTube, Discord, and things as well, which introduce you to running a node and like kind of help you with user resources. And then the ETH R&D Discord is for all technical discussion, a good starting point. And then I cannot recommend this talk enough if you want to watch more. So recently there was this ETH Online marathon of all these kind of different interesting talks. And I think this one really explains Ethereum 2, the staking part, really, really well. And it's like a good starting point if you want to be staking on phase 0. Thank you. Let's move on to the Q&A.
Great. Thanks a lot, Proto, for the great presentation. And yeah, it's a difficult topic to explain to a non-technical audience. And I think you did a great job taking us through what have been the challenges and the progress on Ethereum 2. I think it's really exciting to see how transparent the Ethereum Foundation has been with all the development and the roadmap. And I think that's one of the strengths of Ethereum, the fact that everything happens in the open and everyone can join and participate. And although it's quite fun, with blockchain, we say it's a great technology to remove a need for trust. And in the end, we trust the protocol and we trust the client, right? And so the fact that all this work is happening in the open and everyone can come and contribute, and that you're presenting to us all the results of all the experiments that have been going on, it's really great. I appreciate you taking the time for this, Proto. And we have a couple of questions on the chat, and maybe before that, just a bit of background. Can you just tell us what are the problems that Ethereum 2 will resolve, and just how, in in kind of summary way, how those problems will be addressed?
Right. So there are these obvious ones we are hoping to resolve over time, like fees in Ethereum 1 and such. These are not the kind of problems that phase 0 immediately solves. But these are the kind of things why we're changing the protocol and improving it. So what we want is more throughput. What we want is to move from proof of work to proof of stake. And we want to move to a better, newer network layer. And just there are lots of improvements, more protocol level kind of thing, where I think Ethereum 1 in some ways is unsustainable. So think about state representation, these kind of things. They're trying to change that and update that with Ethereum 1x. But if you can just do it right from the start with Ethereum 2 for the things that we are replacing, that's a really a boon to help improve things.
Right.
And then I think after you think of Ethereum, it's really this thing you use for the consensus layer. We really need to expand the consensus layer to enable proof of stake. But then we embed Ethereum 1, and so in Ethereum 1 itself, in the execution layer, there's not so much going to change. That should be mostly compatible.
Great. Yeah, thanks for the recap, Proto. And it's exciting to see that things like moving away from proof of work is going to be coming up pretty soon, right? And then maybe on the more longer future, we're going to have basically better capacity on the Ethereum network overall.
Right.
And I guess, you know, what maybe some people who are not deep down on the technical might not appreciate is just how difficult it is to do it when you have this network that's already existing and already running. And I read a comparison once where somebody said, it's like, imagine you have a plane flying and suddenly you decide to change the engines mid-flight without crashing. And we are really at this level of challenges that your team and your colleagues have dealt with over the years. And it's really incredible to see the progress, and super excited to see that we have the release candidate for phase 0, right? If I understand. So it's incredible progress that the team has achieved. And just if you could take us in like a summary way on like the phase 0, phase 1, phase 2, what are they going to enable at each step? And, you know, what's like the sequence of things that are going to happen?
I'm excited about, so phase 0, it's just the system chain. It's a complicated beast. It's a lot of changes, but it's not something the user will immediately notice. Phase 1, however, is this thing where we get lots and lots of data throughput, and not just data. It's data with like very good availability, right? It's this kind of thing where you can trust you can retrieve the data later on in like a way that like you're not out of the loop. You can build things on top of them. Layer 2s will really benefit from this. And having like the estimates are like 1 to, what was it again, 4 megabits per second. Like what you can like put on the chain and like go through. These kind of things it's just really special to see these kind of protocol improvements where you can just like kind of offer kind of scalability and that a rollup really needs to do things efficiently.
Great. Yeah. So phase 1 with this data availability, right? And then phase 2 is when we have the full EVM, right? The full smart contracts.
Yeah. So phase 2 is just like, so far, phase 2 is just like the label to like aggregate the whole collection of runtimes you can put on this data layer. Previously, we had a lot of discussion about EWASM. Right now, it is looking more like we'll have just data first with data availability sampling, proof of custody. There's other protocols that really improve this data layer a lot. And then the EVM, what we know as the Ethereum 1 state, we hope to plug that in on Ethereum 2 first before we go to on and plug in another execution context.
Great. So yeah, phase 0, phase 1, phase 2. I see in the chat, in the questions, that we have some people also that are excited about the phase 0 coming up and the opportunity to do what's called staking, right? So maybe can you share with us what's staking and what does phase 0 enable for people who want to experiment with it? And also, of course, what are the risks involved if you're going to be staking on ETH 2?
Right. So with phase 0, I think this is really more of a thing for like kind of like if you're thinking about support for the protocol and for Ethereum 2, enabling us to go to phase 1, phase 2, building towards this situation is that we need to scale up the consensus layer. And so it's like really this preparation phase where we like adopt this idea of running like 30 to 100,000 validators, these kind of entities that sign off on block routes. And this is like this really new thing that's exciting to me, that this is a huge difference from proof of work.
Right.
And kind of like this, we just need to put this into practice, launch this first before we can really move to phase 1 and do these other things. You don't want to be like don't want to be like a waterfall where just like really introduce everything at once. No, you want to try and create these incremental changes.
Right, and this approach that the foundation has taken, and all the community of being extremely careful with this upgrade. You know, you're changing the engines mid-flight, right? Right. I think it's really great to see how everyone was so careful and seeing all those test nets and all the effort. I mean, 5 clients, it's, for something that's not in production yet.
There have been some really interesting interoperability issues and a lot to go through. And this network layer level change, it's been so, it's been involved in the amount of kind of things we went through to get to this point where you could have these different languages, get to consensus.
Also, congrats for all the team working with you, and congrats on getting to this point where we have a release candidate, where we have test nets that are being getting instability day after day. So it's really great to see this. And just to answer one common question before we go, because we have another panel coming up. A common question people have is should I stake my Ether on ETH2? And a common question people have also is, if I do deposit Ether on the staking contract, right? Is there any way for me to take them out? Can I change my mind later?
Right. So there are multiple pieces to answer here. So should you participate? It really depends on your experience so far with testnets, being prepared, thinking about risks. It's no joke to run. It's not a passive thing. You have to run your validator nodes, your beacon nodes, know to keep them up. And then there's this other problem where phase 0, it's just focused so much on consensus and staking that it's not just this user-facing thing. It's not a layer for transactions. You are stuck with your phase 0 validator for a long time until phase 1 comes around. So this is kind of this risk of not being able to withdraw for an extended period of time may not be as attractive. I understand that. So you kind of have to think about weigh the risk of participating early, being part of the phase 0 validator set.
Indeed.
So is very different from the later validator sets where you have transactions, where you have execution, this kind of thing. Then it's just much more liquid, and it's less about being this consensus participant and more about being a user.
Right. So yeah, thanks a lot to recap on this. And you heard it from the man from Proto. You have to know what you're doing. It's extremely risky. Your funds are going to stay locked. So, for anyone looking at Ethereum 2 staking, if you're a developer and want to participate, please do. Please get in touch at Proto and at Proto Lambda. Sorry. Thank you very much for taking the time for today's presentation.
Those aspiring stakers, this talk walks you through the risks much better than I could do. It's a good thing to watch later.
Yep. Thank you so much, Proto. It's great to have you here today. And you have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.